Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in today. We have a really amazing session at our hands today. And before we get started, right, we would just give it a couple of minutes for a lot of attendees who are joining in from different places to get comfortable and join in on this session. And we would generally like to do this fun exercise, right? Thank you so much for joining in from all the locations that you are joining in from. We would like to know where you're joining in from. And this time, we want to know one more thing as well. Like, if you knew about this session or this webinar, if you could also tell us how did you come to know about it, that would be great as well. So, you can just start engaging that on the comments or the chat that's below so we can see where you are from, so that is going to be great as well. Of course, we have a lot of note takers joining us as well. If people are able to aren't able to join, yeah, I think your note taker is going to do the job for you. Hello, Greg. Hi, Joshua. We have people joining in from Florida. That's nice. That's amazing. We have somebody from Ohio. Amazing. San Francisco. I think we're covering all time zones, guys. That's always great. Oh, somebody from Canada, somebody from Maryland. Amazing, amazing. Oh, we have somebody from UK, Tampa. Wow, wow, wow. Somebody from France. Amazing. So one of the things that we really love whenever we're doing this session is we get to hear perspectives from a lot of experts, but also we have people tuning in from so many places. This shows is irrespective of wherever you're from, we're all curious about this one topic, right? So let's get into it because we've talked about this enough in 2025, right? So at this point, I know everybody should be tired. Like if there's one word that everybody has talked about in their space or in their workspace is going to be agentic AI. So we heard enough times, like, I don't know if you'd wished your coworker well or not. I definitely am confident that you would have had a conversation up with him about agentic AI. But what we wanted to do, like last year from SuperOps, we spoke so much about what it does, how it matters to MSPs and IT teams, and what are the security concerns and all of that. But this year, we wanted to take a step back and see, right, we've had so much conversations around agentic AI being this breakout technology for MSPs and IT teams, not just MSPs and IT teams, across all industries, changing the way the industry works. But what we wanted to do is take a step back here, because when we look closer at the data, we saw that there was something interesting as opposed to how much it was being talked about and how much it was actually put into use. And this disconnect is why we partnered with Omdia, Canalys on this research. The goal was to understand how MSPs and IT teams are actually adopting agentic AI today and how much of this is an experimentation. So we want to understand actually the end of this webinar is just not a walkthrough of a report and the research and the analysis that we did, but we also want to understand. So the data is great, but how do we read this data? What are our inferences from this data, and what realistic actionable adoption path looks like for agentic AI? But by the end of the session, there should be some sort of clarity. What is real? What is the hype? Why adoption tend to stall, on how teams can start building on agentic AI rather than just talking about it. So we have two amazing speakers today. We have Jessica from Omdia, who is part of the research, who gave us so much insights into how people are using agentic AI today in the MSP and IT space. And also we have Damo, who's a practitioner who's building agentic AI for MSPs and IT teams. It's always two great perspectives to have, because we can hear from Jessica into all the analysis. We are going to get a reality check first as to see how much of the hype has actually translated into actions, and we're also going to have Damo explain that to us to see how we can rationalize this whole data, right? So let's get started. We're very glad to have you here, Jessica. So first and foremost thing, we're going to start with Jessica, with the research, with the topic that we had taken at our hand. So let's get started. What is the data? Talk to us about agentic AI. How is this put into use in an MSP or an IT environment? How much of it is just an experimentation or just a hype where they talk about, and how much are they actually using it? So without further ado, I would like for you to take it away from here, Jessica.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here today to talk about this research. Um, it's really an interesting moment, right? From an analyst perspective, what matters most isn't whether agentic AI exists, it's how unevenly the confidence to deploy it is distributed across the market. When we looked at the data, one contrast really stood out clearly. Around 70% of organizations say they're using agentic AI internally in some way. But when we actually look at production usage, especially in live IT service desk environments, that number changes. It drops to around 10%. And roughly 30% of MSPs and around 17% of the organizations they support aren't using agentic AI at all. And that contrast really matters. Experimentation is becoming common with agentic AI. Organizations know they need to jump on. Both IT organizations and MSPs they know they need to move in that direction. But at this point, excuse me, putting it into practice is rare. Um, what we consistently hear is that teams are cautious about letting AI interact with customer-facing or business-critical workflows. And that hesitation isn't really surprising. But it is interesting why teams are hesitating. It isn't about whether the technology works. It's about whether leaders feel confident they can explain decisions, control outcomes, and stay accountable. That's a trust thing. The primary blockers aren't technical limitations. Uh, Governance, accountability, and control show up far more often. Another important signal is customer expectations. More than 40% of MSPs say that over a third of their customers have deployed some form of agentic AI in 2025. And a majority expect over 40% of customers to be using agentic AI by 2028. Customer expectations are clearly moving faster than MSP operational readiness, and IT organizations also recognize the importance of this path. That's a gap. And historically, when these gaps form, they tend to widen before they narrow.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that, Jessica, because this is one of the key things that we want to look at, right? So you put it in a really amazing way because, like I said, the point of this session is not to just talk through the report, but as to analyze and see what the data tells us today. And what the data tells us is very clear. So there's clearly intent around using agentic AI, but when we actually see how much of it is actually put into production, that's drastically lower than what the industry wants it to be. And it's very interesting that you put it this way, which is like there's also like one of the questions that I wanted to ask you, you had already answered that, which is I wanted to know if there's pressure from the external customers wanting MSPs to deliver more, or for MSPs to bridge their margins. I think you addressed that very effectively as well. Because, like I said, everybody wants to use, and there's a lot of ambiguity in terms of how a large amount of agentic AI is not being used in operations, which led us to the one of the biggest hindrance or whatever is stalling the progress here, right, which is governance and security as well. So the gap here is not curiosity, it's just the confidence in terms of how I'm going to have trust over the system for me to put it into production and deliver more results. So without further ado, I'm going to push it to Damo, because like one of the things that I would love to always do is now that we have this data, Damo is somebody who is in the front lines building tools for MSPs and IT teams. So, Damo, help us translate this for the two audience in the room, right? MSP and internal teams are seeing the same AI wave, but reacting very differently. Why does this data land differently, and what can you tell us about it?
And yeah, and hi and welcome to everybody joining in. It's going to be a great conversation. Jumping right into it, I think the difference actually is in the persona, guys. I would expect half the audience here to be in MSP and half IT, but they have very different outcomes that they want to drive. MSP wants to just, not just provide a great service, but also to drive its own business. So it's a business trying to deliver a service. IT teams are inside a walled garden. So while both of them can understand, if you notice the wave of everybody understands the wave, everybody uses it outside their work a lot. IT teams actually get the chance to, the numbers of them actually deploying IT is actually a little higher because they can try a lot of things out because the consequences are much more controllable. And that is basically it. I mean, from the data, it's evident that AI does have a lot of impact when it comes to like testing, but it's almost like the audience is waiting for it to have enough control. MSPs just want enough control before they can deploy to production. So a lot of the progress that's also happening in AI is to build it in a more supervised fashion. Though that's the reason why more of supervised AI is coming out in the past year, more than like autonomous and what the whole market wants everybody to do. MSPs are a little bit more cautious because they actually control it's they can't really have a bad day. It reflects on the business, whereas IT teams haven't. So that's the big difference that we see. With AI also catching up in the past year, I think the the race to use a lot more AI and be more autonomous is going to accelerate in 2026 as well. So I see these graphs changing significantly as these systems get better, the code gets more accurate and more lesser hallucinations. You can control things better. Governance and security also has taken a big leap. So good things planned for this year.
Amazing, Damo. Thank you so much for that. One of the interesting thread from this conversation is when we often have this conversation with MSPs and IT teams, like you mentioned, MSPs are directly responsible for customer data, and IT teams are directly responsible for internal employee system. So we talked about is security still being the biggest blocker here. To which one of the things that you said was security is increasing table stakes, but all the AI systems are still built with all the security built in, but it is about that trust and governance that's put in place. Could you talk to us a bit about how this is a mindset shift as to it's not just about security, right? I would just want you to expand on those thoughts.
Yeah, I think that the word security is sort of used in a very different way when it comes to AI. AI, in general, is built with enough securities and safeguards. So, access control, all that are layers that, you can define very well with AI. So, building AI with security is actually not that difficult. It is more of actually how AI behaves after you build it, and that is why the explanation of how your AI behaves will if I turn on some AI that does ticket deflection, will it behave the same way as in the morning as I get like 10 tickets versus at night where I get like 25 tickets? And it's this kind of like the security of the decision making that is like hampering the industry from adopting it faster. And how much can it, I know, how much can I, as a practitioner of AI, override these systems and also learn from AI to make the AI better over time is also another piece, right? So the point isn't that AI is unsafe. It is just that it takes a while to have define controls over it. And once you define this operational trust, then things are actually much more smoother.
Amazing. I think that's one of the key threads that we want to constantly unpack, right? There's a lot of ambiguity around security. Like it's not just about security, but it's about the trust. Like one of the quotes that you had mentioned is like, is it going to work the same way at 2 a.m. when I'm not looking into the system as it works when I'm watching it? So that's one of the best way to put it out. Jessica, I would love to have your thoughts on it as well. What do you have to say in this
Yeah,
context?
I absolutely agree. Trust is certainly the key word here, right? It's not just about security, it's about whether you trust um, uh, uh, to put your business in the hands of AI, really. And the microcosm is that of that is the technician tests the agent, um, and the agent performs, and then the technician trusts the agent, and that's a microcosm of the entire AI journey.
Amazing. Yes, I think we've come to a point where it, like whatever we're talking about it, right? Like we put very a microscope to it, and in trying to overanalyze what security is, and like how it's stalling the progress of technicians in MSP or technicians in the IT teams. But what's worth unpacking is whatever Damo mentioned, which is it's a mindset shift as to as an MSP, as an IT team, am I ready to trust the system to deliver the results that I want from it? I think that's one of the areas that we would focus, right? Because what the data tells us is we are still in the experimenting phase, because this trust is what is stalling the progress on the level with which I want to use AI. Because right now I'm very skeptical about it, because I'm still not, trusting it enough for me to handhold things and do things with AI. So, Damo, I would want you to share your thoughts on the mindset shift that has to happen for an MSP or an IT team to say, hey, okay, so here is where I am right now, and this is how I can confidently start trusting and adopting AI. I know that's not going to be done overnight, but if there has to be some start, where would it be?
See, I think it all starts when he spoke about this even before, right? It's all starts with the mindset shift, guys. The mindset shift that I'm talking about is the shift that the kind of work that you've been doing, like even managing ticket, doing a lot of the technician and the MSP and IT manager work is going to change once you have AI in the picture. Because a lot of the things that you used to do before, in some of that in like brute force repetitive manner, it just gets transformed automatically because AI takes over and does a portion of those decisions along with crunching of data, right? Looking at multiple endpoints and making decisions on whether to turn on or apply a policy or turn on something to patch it very differently. All those decisions you can actually have AI do it. Your job becomes more of like trying to be like a doer with all the tools that you have, to a more of a supervisor with an excellent assistant who you can actually work together to deliver the best outcome for your customers, right? And that also happens where you have to embrace AI and try to use AI in your workflow from the beginning. If you use AI as like a side dish and use it only when required, the MSPs that do that are still adding value. No point there. But the ones that really enjoy and adopt and adapt their whole business workflow and their technician workflow with AI are the ones who are getting the best value. And that discomfort is where the value is, and that's what is the journey that anybody working with AI in our ecosystem is going to go through before they taste big success.
That's a great point, right? Because like what level of AI do we put to use, and what does the deliver for it? Because like you said, what is the cost of hesitation in this is people, like if you said, like if MSPs or IT teams are stuck in the whole AI as a side dish, they get stuck in the whole shiny object cycle where they don't see much of a result as much as like, hey, okay, this is not as pressing as a lever as I expected it to be. But one of the things that that we saw delivering result to a lot of MSPs is like when they bake it into their workflows and make it a part of their system and trust it to do the kind of results that they deliver is the very reason why we are having this whole conversation in itself. Like why go through all this trouble of looking into data as to why we need to use agentic AI and what it has to offer is because it's been game changing for a lot of MSPs who boldly adopted it, but in a controlled and trusted fashion. So I would love for both of you to add your thoughts as to what sort of changes has it made to an MSP in terms of delivering growth results for them. And I would like to hear from both Damo as well as Jessica on this. But before that, I just have a quick announcement to make. So as we are having this conversation, you would see some of the polls pop up so that we just want to get your thoughts or inputs as to what is running through your mind as you're listening to this conversation. So yes. Over to you, Damo and Jessica. So I would love for you to just expand on why are these MSPs who are baking it into their workflows winning more comfortably, and what's the cost of hesitation?
See, in a lot of cases, even with the previous like automation cycles, right? A lot of MSPs and IT teams just did nothing. Like they just didn't adopt. They're like, yeah, it's okay, it's going to come and go. And the ones that actually have gone ahead and done a lot of automations are the ones that have grown significantly and had very good exits, right? So there is even if you keep AI on the side, adopting this new technologies, there is some benefit there by default, right? But given this way where you can actually transform your workflow, you have actually an opportunity to go and pitch a completely different service and acquire customers in a very different way, right? Previously you were limited by the fact that your technician could, as much as you do automations or whatever, you could get to like a technician managing maybe 150 endpoints or maybe 200 endpoints, right? But with AI it goes from like 200 to almost 500, right? And imagine the capacity that you have now to go acquire new customers, do or just have a better quality of life, right, as a technician or as an MSP owner. And even for our internal IT, the ones that have adopted and even taken the first step, that is the big difference that they've seen. I mean, sitting idle, yes, you can say, I'm fine with whatever ticketing that I have, but the amount of productivity gains that you get, and the seat that your IT starts having on the table, where your CEO is looking for AI initiatives to be delivered and show value, it's a different conversation altogether. So that difference in like conversation and mind shift actually has benefits for both the MSP and IT in exactly the way they want to grow, one as a business and one as a more strategic part of the company.
Amazing. Because one of the things that you had mentioned earlier is like Agentic AI forces a shift in how MSPs work. It's not about how many tickets are on my screen. It's about what tickets I have to prioritize first. Like it's not like just adding AI features onto an existing platform. It's these sort of results that's boosting the efficiency there. Uh, Yes, Jessica, I would love to hear your thoughts on this area as well. As somebody who's done this research extensively, so we would like to know your opinion on it as well.
To me, there's definitely, when I talk about the gap and the widening gap and the haves and have-nots, I'm thinking about the competitive situation for MSPs in particular. Um, there are a number of large, mature MSPs that are already on this path, and the smaller MSPs that hesitate here are going to lose ground against that. These larger, more mature MSPs are automating or working to automate their level 1 and level 2 work, and they're getting more efficient. Hesitation doesn't keep you neutral here. It compounds the disadvantages over time. And we're seeing that as also as private equity firms are looking at managed service providers as potential investment targets. They're looking at the efficiencies that these larger companies have by using tools such as AI and agentic AI, particularly.
Amazing. I
Um,
think that's yeah, Jessica, go for it.
if you delay the journey, it gets harder to compete every year, and agentic AI stops being optional. It's going to become part of the operating model. I mean, I think about the side dish analogy. I'm thinking really it's an ingredient too. It's something that's sort of foundational and underlying your whole stack. Uh, yeah.
Amazing, right? That's a great point because one of the things that we're constantly measuring is like what outcome is it delivering to me? The whole private equity situation that you mentioned right now is fascinating because a lot of MSPs are already starting to use agentic AI as a growth lever in order to pump these inefficiencies. So that's it's great that it's already seeing results, but like how do we do it in a controlled, trusted fashion is what we wanted to look at. So I think Damo, like, what do you have to say for this? I think you, from your experience of working with MSPs, how true is that, and what sort of avenues is it creating further for them?
See, like I mentioned, when you're looking at agentic AI, and as Jessica rightfully mentioned, even the smaller MSPs, for example, even a couple of weeks back, we were talking to some PE firms. The way they're evaluating the MSP market itself is now as as how Jessica saying the has and has not, have and have nots, and where they are saying is the ones that have AI embedded and are adopting AI, those are the ones that they're actually betting on, like the big hockey stick growth, right? So those are the ones that they believe are going to get the best valuation. And in some cases rightfully so, because it is something that, like I said, it unlocks a big growth lever as well. But so yeah, echo what Jessica said from that perspective. From a compliance perspective as well, if you look at IT, previously what you needed a lot of people to do to manage, once your company grows, you have to grow in your IT has to grow enough headcount and catch up. Now you don't. Right now you can actually run compliance and be more on top. But given that IT beyond a certain size does have ITIL and good processes in place, their adoption also actually has improved, and that's why you see that 1 or 2% increase in IT teams also trying to use AI.
Amazing. Like I think a lot of conversation in the chat is also echoing some of the concerns or the path to adoption here. I think we spoke a lot about how this is making a difference and why are we talking about this in the first place? Because it's showing visible results, and it's also changing how these private equity firms look at an MSP in terms of valuation, like in terms of efficiency or in terms of their growth plan as such, right? So. Now let's get into the actual adoption journey that everybody is curious about, because we have a few questions. I think we would get to address that towards the end of our session, but we are going to get right into it, which is, hey, now I'm completely sold and bought into the idea that I have to use Agentic AI as an ingredient for my MSP business or into my internal IT workflow. How do I create this trusted staggered process, to start adopting this in an incremental fashion? It's not something that I can change overnight. We've talked about how we should change our mindset towards agentic AI so that we can start getting comfortable with it. So now let's say hypothetically I've gotten very comfortable with it. Where do I start? So Jessica, I would like to, because this research did not just look into the adoption process, but also it had suggestion as to how they can actually get into it more based on the trends that's growing. So let's start from you, Jessica. How do you see this trusted phased adoption process?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not a jump in today and flip the switch and okay, I'm done. We are consistently seeing adoption follow a maturity curve. We start with assistive, and then we move to semi-autonomous and then autonomous. And there is no universal timeline. The pace depends on governance maturity and comfort with accountability. Um, but you need to start. The teams that start small, prove value, and build internal confidence step by step are the ones that are moving in the right direction. That's the trajectory.
Amazing, Jessica. I think you put it really well in terms of the process, right? Like you have different layers. You start small. You incrementally go to the different levels of autonomy in terms of your workflow. So what I'm gonna expect from Damo is like saying, "Hey, Jessica has given us the formula, but how do you make this real on the ground for MSP
Yeah.
and IT teams?" I would like for you to cite an example and get on with it.
Yeah, and I think actually the where you start is actually a very crucial part of this journey, because if you try to bite too much, like, and that's why a lot of these enterprise pilots have failed. They've tried to really automate everything, add agentic AI and like change the whole operating model in the first day, and that's why all these pilots stall. So just as Jessica mentioned, start slow and start where your volume and repetition are the highest, where you would actually apply automation. That is exactly where you even look at applying agentic AI. So you start with tickets and ticket triaging, your password resets. Patching is a huge use case, right? Because you have something that you require to look at multiple, maybe tens of thousands of endpoints and computers and keep them all patched up to date, right? How do you do that? Yes, you can do it with some repetitive automation, but how do you add intelligence to that? Because agentic AI can do it in a very clever manner. And then of course remediation, both from a endpoint basis, but also from a figuring out how to do repetitive tickets, because a lot of the tickets that come into the MSP and IT world are very repetitive, right? They're all similar tickets that you can, if you can, resolve and deflect quickly, it actually is the best way to sort of keep your, table clear for when the real problem happens. And over time build something that is actually going to be resilient and let you have a, the clean bathroom that you can sell to your customers and even as an internal IT team, right? So start where the volumes are low, high enough, and there's repetition. Always start supervised. In fact, I would argue that from our customers who've adopted and whom we've spoken to, even the best have maybe have one completely autonomous agent, and that too for just something very deterministic, like just giving you a new password every time and giving you just creating a new password key or whatever. Everybody else starts supervised. What that means is, even for what the AI can do very well, you have to run it a few times, maybe for a few weeks, just to get it to a point where you can even have some autonomy built in. So start supervised. Always unify your data, because the more data that you supply to the AI, the better it's going to work. And by data, I mean not just your ticketing data, the hygiene that you have in all these systems by creating knowledge bases, and writing what exactly you did to solve the ticket in the ticket itself. All that is gold for AI, because it cannot train very quickly from all that and become powerful faster over time. But most importantly, think of uh, how you do approach this agentic automation as what a role would require, from almost like a, the different brains required. So for, if you take something like a L1 technician, there's triaging involved, there's deflection involved, there's creation of knowledge base and maintaining. Suppose you have these four things that you have to do. You can do all four as individual supervised agents, and then figure out how you can thread them and create a replacement agent for, say, a junior L1 technician for a specific time, and see how it works. And that is the progress that we've seen a lot of our MSPs and IT teams use to sort of be successful in the last year, and especially this year as the technologies get better.
Amazing, Damo. Thank you so much. I think you shared a lot of things that's really crucial. One of the anecdotes that I really love about how do you treat AI agents is you treat it like an intern that was just joined your MSP or an IT firm. So, like this whole supervised automation is, hey, you let them do a particular task, but it is still supervised because you don't want them to take complete control over it until you trust them enough for you to do it. So that's one of my favorite anecdotes about how you treat an agentic AI model or an AI agent per se. And just unifying operational data is actually crucial as well, because this is something that we've talked about, not just for agentic AI, just AI per se, right? Which is your AI is only as good as the data that's fed into it. Having that clear path and giving as much as context as possible and the right data as possible is going to make your AI work better. And it echoes one of the thoughts that our users have shared in the chat. I would just like to read that for you, Damo, because it's similar to this last point that you spoke about, which is you don't. The reason why we are talking about agentic AI as a huge shift is it's not delivering what a feature would deliver. It just doesn't stick to a particular action, but it has the ability to automate a certain process. Michael Mills here has said, like, to oversee AI, you have to have the skills that AI is replacing. How do I create succession planning if AI removes my path to creating engineers? So, what are your thoughts there, Damo?
Yeah, actually, it's a very cleverly worded question. Actually, and then let me try and unpack it. Maybe Michael, you can step in later. Right? We hear from a lot of our MSPs is, um, you know, even as recently as a few months back, when he asked them, why don't you use AI, right? And then the owner is saying, and it's a six tech, it's a pretty good MSP, very funny guys, very, they do great work. They're like, the owner's like, because they don't want them to get lazy, right? And I'm like, what do you mean? And it's like, no, I need them to like know what they have to do. And I want them to learn from doing this, L1 deflection and become better technicians, right? And if we are building all these agents that will automate all the simple stuff, then how are they going to learn and become these advanced engineers, right? So that's a chicken and egg situation that you have. But what actually the MSPs that have used it efficiently do is they adopt the AI and make that AI work as a sidekick along with the L1 technicians and the ones that are actually doing the job to make them better, because now instead of them learning by making mistakes, the AI actually keeps them within the bounds of making right decisions. So they actually learn and understand their roles very well, and effectively they don't have to worry too much about, they reduce their training cost and the errors that a new employee or somebody who doesn't know the process can come and do. So in a lot of cases there are some AI that runs as assistants, and it's almost like a coach for them, for these new guys. So fair point, Michael. If you have another follow up, we'll respond to that. Otherwise, it's a very good point that you made.
Amazing. I think that's a very great segue to whatever we discussed at the end. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on it. So thank you so much for that. Uh, Jessica, I would like to just hear from you as well, right? So uh, with respect to this whole shift, right? Like, what other things, like if there's one thing that like all the MSPs or IT teams who have joined this need to keep in their mind when they are actually adopting this, do you have any suggestions, or like with the conversations that you've had with the MSPs and IT teams in your research, were you able to actually like get some of the best practices from these MSPs who are actually building for agentic AI and like growing exponentially in that manner? So we would just like to see if you have any suggestions for us on that front.
Yeah, from what we see across the market, the MSPs that are positioning themselves well for this shift are ones that make three things explicit in their goals, even before they pick tools. Um, and first is that they're clear about where the human oversight needs to remain non-negotiable. I mean, that's what we're talking about here, right? And where agents can act with supervision. And again, that's a process, and it's about trust. Um, and second, they define which roles they expect AI to reshape, not just what tasks they want to automate. So maybe level one techs become the exception handlers, as L1 tasks are taken on by AI, the ones like password resets, that we were talking about before. And third, they're explicit about how control works here. Decisions need to be able to be explained. And they need to know when humans can step in and who ultimately owns the outcome. I mean, those are basic controls that need to be in place. These three things, when they're taken together, are going to help MSPs sequence their agentic AI journey step by step, which is what matters in this stage of the market. When you have that clear path, when you can see it spelled out in front of you, that's going to give you more trust in agentic AI and the journey to agentic AI too. So you don't have to worry about agentic AI getting lazy so much, right?
Yeah,
Amazing.
actually, a very good segue is Tim Timmons actually has posted a very
I was
nice
going
comment
to go for
today.
exactly that
Yeah.
comment, and thank you for bringing that
It's
up,
like
Damo.
how one of the most important shifts that we're also seeing is, and Sriram can probably add to this because Tim, I remember him being somebody we met a few years back as well. The fact that we have to have control of the decision is a very easy statement to make, as in like a webinar like this, right? But in reality, as a practitioner, especially, I mean, simple things like, okay, is it giving me a translation? That's easy to verify. You can say yes, no, and proceed very quickly. But once you start really using agentic AI, which is like it is deflecting a ticket, right? You really want to know what are you using? Are you using the previous knowledge base, the previous three tickets? Are you are you going online and figuring out the best way to do this and coming back to me. How exactly you're making that decision is something that's very important. So, especially in SuperOps and in when you practice AI as well, make sure that you have an explainability cycle. What that means is, for example, everything that an agent does in the SuperOps environment, we have a clear way of explaining what is the rationale. Like it will explain to you what are the knowledge bases that I looked at, what is the articles that I looked at, what is the previous ticket entry, and this is why I made this decision, so that you can thumbs up, thumbs down, tune it so that it will actually work the way you want in your MSP. The intent is for the AI to learn from your data and your past behavior, but if you believe that you have a way of tuning it to do something better, that is always available. And so that is a very crucial point, right? The tool set to be able to review the decisions is something that has to be baked in when you deliver this as a service, even as an MSP to your customers. Thanks, Tim. That was really good. Very good question.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Damo, because as soon as Jessica started explaining the whole analogy, I was immediately going to go to Tim Dimons's comment, because that effectively sums it up, right? Because that's not just Tim's question that's there. I think that's one of the common things that everybody wants to consider. So I think um, that sums it up pretty much in terms of what we wanted to discuss today. Because what we wanted to try and do today is to not just talk about agentic AI and like explore the endless possibilities of what it has to achieve, but also to have a practical way of how to implement it, which is something that we did. And like Dama also, to his point, he mentioned how he's having SuperOps have that approached. And I think you would have seen some of the polls. If you would like to know more about how our approach is for the specific question that you had mentioned, we would be more than happy to work with you, because we have a lot of exciting stuff that's coming up. We're building a lot of agents. Like you have Damo, who's already here with this to do that as well. So feel free to, you already address the poll. So if you are interested to know more about, just drop a comment on the chat, and we would be more than happy to have this conversation with you. So before we try to summarize it and wrap it, right, so this was the point of this entire research as well. We wanted to get into the brass tacks of how the adoption is today in the market. We clearly saw that the data shows the gap, because real world experience claims that a lot of teams get stuck in various points, and these are the reasons for it. So there are a few things that I would like to know from Damo and Jessica as well. So from what do you see on the ground, like you've been working with MSPs, like what's the hardest mindset shift that an MSP have to make when moving from experimenting with AI to actually operationalizing it? Like we were talking about a lot of mindset shift, right? Whereas it's not about security, it's about trust and control. If there's one thing that's very hard when you put it to practice, because you mentioned it's easier to have this conversation on a webinar about doing this. What's one thing that's really hard, and if that shift is made, it gets easier from then on?
Sure. I can go first. So when we talk to a lot of the MSPs who are dabbling with AI, the first thing is, do you want to change your operating model, right? The mindset shift is actually saying, do you want to become a better MSP? Yes, that is mostly yes for the most part, even with other tools. But do you want to change your operating model, where you talk about, shifting from like a managed service provider to a managed intelligence provider, right? And that is the big mindset shift. If you can negotiate that within your MSP, and it takes time, small to large, there's a sweet spot where you can pivot very quickly. But if once you adopt the mindset change of, I'm going to be somebody who's going to be an AI MSP, and I'm going to be an intelligence provider. So I'm not going to come and just take orders from me. I'm going to tell you how to run your IT, right? And I'm going to have agents help me for that. Once you decide that that is going to be your business model moving forward, everything falls in place, right? Then the tools that you use, and even the agents that you adopt and build, they all will help you move to that very very quickly. And the ones that we have seen make that mindset shift are the ones in the last year who have had the most success. Right? They are the ones who talk a lot about, even in the channel, you can see a lot of the MSPs who talk a lot about becoming completely, an AI MSP and things, and have, you know, going, I mean, changing from 1 million to 3 million in like a few, like maybe a few months. And it's incredible, right? The way they can acquire customers, the way they can talk a new business model, which is very appealing to their customers, is something that I think is the biggest mindset shift.
Amazing. That's a great way to put it, like which is the whole transformation from an MSP to an MIP. Because one of the things that a lot of people are worried about is the whole point of ROI. Because the focus has always been like, hey, how do I show my customer more value? How do I package my AI usage into my service offerings? Like it's the other way around, right? Like you change your operational model to be an intelligence provider as to a service provider. Your service offerings change according to that. It's not the other way around, like you had mentioned, because that is one of the common things. Because people are used to working in a certain way. One of the things that Agentic AI is asking of an MSP and IT team is to change the way that they work. Because we're usually resistant to change, right? Like if I have one of the things that an MSP spoke about earlier was like the reason why I'm skeptical to a change is like I am guaranteed a year on year growth with the current processes that I am comfortable in. But you're asking me to change the whole way and asking me to take a gamble on this. But the fact with agentic AI is, like you mentioned earlier, it's not like the previous automation cycles. Because there the differences were marginal. Like if people who adopted automation, they were able to see the marginal rise in the success percentage, whereas this is a slightly exponential as opposed to a normal automation, which brings me to Jessica's point as well. Because you're it's going to compound from there. It's the disadvantage is not just going to uh, grow slowly. It's going to compound from there, which is forcing them to change that. So Jessica, we would love to hear your thoughts on this as well.
Yeah. So I would say there's an overwhelming amount of information out there about AI, and it's really a fire hose that everybody's drinking from every day. I think there's hesitation about where to even start too. You can't have the whole thing today. And so I think one of the success routes that we've seen is to start small, to look at, that first role that you want to work with to automate, and have the level one technician work with you on that process and have them supervise that and have them talk about the tasks that they work with every day, so that you get their participation, you get their help, and you allow them to supervise the process and really um, see the outcomes too. Again, building that trust. So you can expand from there.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Because, like you said, again, one of the things that we see happening is there's overwhelming amount of data everywhere. So we've been talking about AI all over and over again. It's very difficult to cut through the noise and get to the point where you actually see, hey, this is where I need to start, and this is how I make things actionable. Starting small without over cluttering your mind in terms of a lot of processes is a great place to start. Uh, Before we move on to more points, I just like to bring up another question somebody has asked. Yeah, Michael Mills had mentioned again, like when dealing with AI, it feels like we have been separated from alignment. This effect tells us how well we can trust the results will match our own values around service delivery. I think it's more about the hypothesis here. So, what do we have to say about that thought, Mo and Jessica? Like, it's again Michael Mills who's opened this conversation up.
Yeah, Michael's super insightful, man. Looks like he's dabbled in AI. So please hit us up if you want to, talk to this and probably explore a bit more outside this webinar as well, Michael. If I understand what Michael is asking is like, how, we talked about the explainability of AI, and how without having an explainability layer, it's actually very difficult to look at how it's doing. If you black box AI, you were never going to know how to say thumbs up or thumbs down. It's like the old, oh my god, I can't believe I said this, the old chat GPT, right, where like you're happy with whatever it gave back, right? But now as we've become more used to the tools in all these years, we actually know what is good and what is not. We know that, for example, chat GPT, a response of chat GPT will have that double M, we know all those characteristics. And having the advice I have is work more with AI. The only way for you to get out of the only way for you to get into a better decision making process with AI is to work more with AI. And that's what even we've found. There's new tools coming out. All the big frontier guys, Anthropic and OpenAI, all those guys are actually creating a lot of ways for us to do work. And since they all are in the coding, they're all in the technical space, a lot of it is actually valuable for the MSP and IT teams, right? So because it's just going to help us write scripts better, it's now going to help us validate and understand it, it's going to help us document things better. So all the tools are actually improving. So the more you work with those tools, you can actually make the tuning better over time.
Amazing. I think that's the for me that's the biggest takeaway is the old chat GPT models, because we moved like this shows you how quickly we're evolving with these AI models, right? We went from saying, hey, let's just Google it to find out what it is, to doing a chat GPT and finding things out, and like the Google wave was so long, and chat GPT felt something like it just happened recently, and now we're already ready to move on from that to another model. So, which grows on to prove a point that these models or this technology is exponentially growing as we speak. But I hope we've tried to make it as operational as possible, because all the things out there are more theoretical. Like I hope throughout this conversation, people are able to make some sense of how you can actually make it real for your environment. So that is something that we wanted to do today. And if there are any more questions that you want to ask both Jessica and Damo, please feel free to drop them on the chat. We have like another 5 to 10 minutes to just take these questions. Yeah, I
While
think Chris.
that's getting loaded, I just also want to thank William for your insightful comments. And it's it looks like even William's been talking about this and reading up on AI and probably practicing a little bit as well, because very insightful, right? It's still going to be people, process, and tech all working together. It's in the model of how you do better as an MSP and IT does not actually fundamentally change. It's just your mindset. That's all we're saying is, it's just that you have better leverage with people. Your process can be a little bit more aligned, and technology gives you super boost, right? So if you compound all three, now your maturity is automatically going up. It's a great point, William. Thanks for dropping that.
Amazing. Yeah. As because William still mentioned, like it still echoed into whatever Jessica had mentioned about the whole process, the three pillars, which is again, you go back to the basics, irrespective of evolving technologies. You just go back to the basics and say, hey, people, process, and then technology. So that's great. Thank you so much, William, for sharing your thoughts there. Uh, yeah, I think
And
Chris is, yeah, go for it, Tom.
no, I was just looking at the same thing. Chris is also giving very good insights on ChatGPT itself. What I mean, just like a lot of providers out there, ChatGPT itself is evolving, and between ChatGPT and say Anthropic, like Opus, if you whether you use Claude or ChatGPT, you're going to get, based on a use case, you can really see new things come out all the time with like better and better capability. Exactly. We always wonder the same thing, right? Why can't Microsoft just come in? Because 80% or almost 90% of our the customers all use Microsoft. Why can't Microsoft just, for example, do it all with Copilot? But the sad reality is Copilot as such has not really taken off, and that's because Copilot itself, is more of unfortunately more of an automation versus agentic, and that's what where people have used Copilot and done some like automations on screen, they've never really gotten that actual agentic value. So we're looking forward to that. I mean, again, we have Copilots installed, but what we are trying to do, just to give you a flavor of how we, again, ChatGPT has all these API calls that we use. So SuperOps, suppose we want to deliver like a script, right? What we realize is that script can be written by ChatGPT the first time, but can also what ChatGPT uses as a reference set of scripts. If you give it the ones that are in the bank that an MSP uses, the script is actually better. So how can we one shot that script to make it like work and be tested very quickly is something that SuperOps can add, right? Because you already have the bank of scripts within what you've created already, and that can be used. And again, you can do it all manually in ChatGPT, but a lot of providers like SuperOps, actually what we try to do is to add that value of giving you that script the first time without you going through cycles and having it tested. So interesting times out there.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Damu, for sharing that because, like you speak, there are a lot of models that are evolving, and like we're looking at now. We spoil for choices right now, right? Like there's so many systems that's coming up, but like what's exactly adding value based on what I work, how I work, is something that everybody is curious and trying to pick things up from. I have an interesting anecdote for both Damo and Jessica, because one of the things that we learned today was among the registrations that we'd gotten for this session, we had a huge spike in people registering for this webinar through ChatGPT. So we found that like our growth team, when they were looking at high traffic pages, they like found that hey, a lot of people are registering for this webinar by searching on ChatGPT about agentic AI conversation. So if there are still some of the few attendees left here who had found this event through ChatGPT, it would be really fun for us to know what did you search to end up on the webinar page. It's just a fun activity that we wanted to do as well. So
Yeah.
yes, you.
Yeah, and I think to further the joke, I want to know how many of you guys actually use Copilot to find this for you. Did you guys actually use AI to find this for you and keep clicking? Because it's very different times, like how we search and find and do things now.
Amazing. So yes, I think before we take closing call, I think there's one more question. This from Brian. As a small MSP, what tools can we start looking at to start small with agentic AI, say helping with supervised passwords, ticket prioritization, and triage to come up? So yes.
Sure, I didn't see that question fully, but I guess I mean you can start with some. I'll talk about ticketing, right? And the tools that you can use actually, if you're using platforms, I mean, if you're using any of the PSARM platforms, you'll have some notion of AI in there, so you can try that as well. But between you know opening like chat gpt and say like claude claude has given a lot more capability for you to try things out because they have a new co-work kind of a module that you can use to connect to your systems and do something similar to a copilot. You can pass it, you can connect, you can dump all your tickets in some repository and point that repository to Claude, and it'll actually do all the analysis for you automatically. So getting started on like doing analysis and looking at your history and figuring out things and getting your feet wet. I think Claude is actually the one that at least we use a lot as a tool. As a tool that you can do it. Again, there's lots of like customized tools as well that there's Manus and that Facebook just bought, and then you do perplexity search for webinars like this perhaps, I don't know. And there's of course there's ChatGPT as well that you can use, but like it's all about like whether you want to use for scripting or coding or whatever. And if you want to reach out, I can actually give you like
Yeah.
all the tips and trips that we use in our daily AI work.
Yes, Brian, actually, that's a great question. Like, if you would like to know more about not just from clouds, like from whatever SuperOps' approach on this with respect to password reset or ticket prioritization. We'll be more than happy to help you set this process. So we can like post this conversation as well, so that you can see how that's going to translate as a results for you. And yes, I think finally I'd like to know from Jessica and Damo, like if you were like advising a growing MSP today, what would you tell them to explicitly include in their goal so that they're not caught flat-footed in by this shift? Like, what is something that they have to include in their roadmap for this year? So let's start with Jessica on that.
Yeah, I would say, the first thing, and I'll keep it brief. The first thing is just to start, to make sure that you're starting with this process. And I think the ideal way to start is to work with the role that you want to automate, you want to work with first, you want to apply the AI to first. And the natural one is the password resets, right? The level one, the password resets, the patching. Um, so starting is the first step. Um, Building trust is a key step, and that involves working with the technician, and having the technician evaluate the results, right? Making sure the technician sees the results, you're testing the results, and has trust in what those results are. That will translate into greater success going forward this year, when you start small and build that trust and work with your level one techs, if that's the role that you're looking to uh, leverage agentic AI for.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that, Jessica. Because, like, if you haven't started already, you don't need to feel it's too late for you. But just uh, starting it is going to be the end goal for this year. And Damo, yeah, it'll-
Awesome. From my perspective, there's like, you know, if we were speaking to a nice medium-sized growing MSP with the intent to grow, I think the first goal that would help you really start heading in that direction is to actually decouple your growth from a hiring mindset, right? Uh, Go after getting more customers than you feel your technicians can handle, because that is what is going to make you understand that that is if you try to your revenue, your endpoints and devices should grow faster than the your hiring count. And so if you keep that in motion, you are going to adopt these technologies a lot more organically. In some ways you'll be forced to use these technologies, as you can't hire really quickly. So I think having that goal helps a lot. The second is actually to uh, set a goal of, like, I want to at least do two assisted agents. Like, let's start with a very meaningfully small number that you want to get started. And this can be an assisted human in the loop agent that I'll create, so that will actually help you go through that journey in at least the first half of the year, so that you understand that the value that AI can provide, and so you can learn as quickly as possible and then start deploying it to your customer. And finally, more than measuring, once you start the journey with AI, more than measuring the usage, right? Just whether you use all these tools, try to set yourself a bar on how much I you measure AI maturity. Like, if, for example, am I use this to sort of reduce my alerts in some manner? I've used, right? So try to just not use the tools for the sake of using, because that's like, then you fall in the 40% that just tries and goes, drops off the funnel. You want to be the one that graduates and comes to the top 10 or 20% who are actually going to be, by the end of this year, and heading towards being an AI MSP. So measure the maturity of your AI usage, not just your pure usage, just clicking on things. So yeah, those are the three suggestions I would have. And yeah, and we have many conversations with our MSPs in our community as well. So please feel free to
yeah.
ping us and engage with us. We all are there, and we have many such conversations about AI.
Amazing. I think That's a great way to end this conversation, right? I hope we made it as operational as possible, instead of like all the theories that you hear in the space. And like, if you want the full data frameworks and deeper examples on all the data points that Jessica has done through this research, we're going to share the report with you as soon as this webinar is done. So you have a copy with you so that you can go more into the data to see all the implications, because we don't want to just run through data points and make a PowerPoint presentation about it. We hope that it helped you. And there are some of amazing questions in the chat right now as we're talking. Like, this is one of the reasons why we had run the poll earlier as well, which is, yes, we have a lot of exciting things coming up for you. So we would love to partner with it. Tim Timmons and Suman, who is already asked about the agentic AI. Features that SuperOps is currently building, and the marketplace. So we're going to reach out to you as soon as possible, so that you can see all the great things that SuperOps is gearing up for, and we're going to talk about it really soon. So that's going to be a follow up to this session. So we're going to reach out to you, like, whoever has expressed interest. We are more than happy to share our like the AI agents and the agentic AI plan with you, and like, we are excited for you to have your hands on and give us your feedback on it. So stay tuned for all of that. Damo, do you have something to say about it?
Yeah, a quick answer for Tim is yes, very soon. And Suman, yes, we'll give you I can give you a quick summary of what we have done with Agentic AI. We built uh, many small Agentic AI features within the platform itself. So the when you interact with SuperOps in the coming months, it's going to be AI first, as in it's going to be agentic. Everything is going to be driven by agentic AI, from your recommended actions to summarization to translation. All that is going to automatically surface and guide you within the product. We're also going to be launching a few marquee agents that are going to take care of ticket resolution and patching and things like that. That is what we call a full stack agent. And if you guys are all interested, we're always looking for design partners and beta testers for this, because it's we need all your help to build it well. So we'll certainly reach out to you with more information, and then talk a little more about that. But everything is coming very soon, guys. We are deep into the builds, and just stay tuned.
Amazing. I think Dam would be the most happiest person because of these conversations, because we wanted to see what sort of feedback that we could get from you for the agents that we're building right now. So if you had answered to the poll already, and we're going to look into you, Chris, Josh, Suman, and Tim Timmins. We're going to reach out to you, since you also talk to us about that on the chat as well. We are coming to you with a lot of great updates, and like, I think Chris has also mentioned, like, it's so tempting for me to reveal whatever we wanted to do. So Brian as well. So he asked for a chat bot, like how SuperOps is using support, and you are going to be in for a ride. I see Damo wanting to talk more about
Yeah,
it immediately. So, like,
but
we're
it's
going to reach out to all of you to kickstart this project as soon as we're done with this conversation. So that's how excited we are.
yeah.
And thank you so much, everybody, for joining in this conversation and like explicitly expressing interest for you to take this whole agentic AI conversation forward. Thank you so much, Jessica, for your time on this conversation and for your efforts into the research, because like all of 2025 we spent talking about AI, rationalizing what we already know, but your research helped us ground things in reality, so that we can set this as a benchmark and start moving from there. And thank you so much, Damo, for sharing your thoughts as well, because all the insights that you shared today was really crucial in terms of putting the research and analysis into real life experience for an MSP or an IT team, and how they can implement in their workflows. So we're gonna come back to all of you for more updates from SuperOps side on the agents that we are building. Thank you so much for joining in today. And like I said, we're going to talk to you real soon. So have a great day, everyone. Bye bye.